Good evening and welcome to this episode of Coach's Corner. My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach,
My name is D Uncle Jr. and I go by the consistency coach.
and we are the coaches for Coach's Corner. As always, like I tend to say, if you are here and you have no intentions of absorbing this information and using it for your betterment, for the betterment of the people that are around you, to improve your footprint, to improve your community, your household, and your family, friends, and loved ones, then you may not necessarily be in the right place. However, if you are here and you have a desire to extract from the information that we're here to share for the sake of your growth, for the sake of your development, for the sake of the growth and development for the people who are around you, then you're in the right place. I believe it was intentional. It was by divine design that you're sitting in your chair right now, listening to the voice of myself, the mindset coach, and my good friend, the consistency coach. So, with that being said, let me speak to my brother from another mother, the Uncle Junior himself, the consistency coach. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. Another day, another Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening. So glad to be here. Glad to be here with you and glad to be here with the chat. And all things considered, man, I am doing well this afternoon.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Also, as well, I'm doing good. Have no complaints. I enjoy the
Hmm.
conversation that we had backstage. Enjoy learning what you're doing right now.
Yes, sir.
That's not only is it good information to know, but it's also insightful and kind of like invigorating. Kind of make me want to do one as well. So yeah, thank you
Hmm.
for sharing that with me. Um, but
But to that, your perspective was very valuable as well. You know what I mean? Because as someone who's already, completed, you've already been farther than I've already been so far. And it's even the conversation about the candles. You was like, "Yep," you know what I mean. So you already been there. So when somebody's already been through it, I think it's always important or my benefit or to their benefit to listen to someone who's already been through the journey. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
man.
So I definitely appreciate that insight that you shared as well.
Anytime, anytime. And again, my point is not to share the experience, it's to share what's learned from the experience. And I
Yep.
think that's where the value is found. Um, but I want to make sure I do something because you mentioned it and I didn't. So I want to make sure I specifically focus on that right now. And that is addressing the lavish chat and social media. And I want to make sure I'm putting it out there when I say that. The reason why we call you guys the lavish chat because you are a functional part of the show. Not only do you add your insights, your perspectives, and your questions, but those are things that we actually use and incorporate in the show. So that's one of the reasons why we call you the livest chat, and we appreciate you. You are here, you're live with us, you're asking questions, you're giving your perspective, sharing your thoughts, and we don't take that lightly. So we want to thank you and appreciate you right now. Give you your flowers right now so that you can appreciate them. We greatly value your presence. We greatly value your insights, and just keep doing what you're doing. And that being said, make sure you hit that like button. Hit that like button and go ahead and share it to your social media platforms. That way, that we can bring more people into the community, so that they can participate in some of these things that we tend to talk about on a weekly basis. So that being said, anything? Oh, one other admin note before I ask you, did I forget anything? Um, Mark your calendar, August 16th. The time is drawing near. We're already in the month of August right now. So we're exactly 2 weeks. Well, we're a little less than 2 weeks away. So listen, make sure that you mark your calendar. If you have not registered, look into the show notes right now. And there might be a banner that's flying up right now. It's giving you the opportunity to register. So make sure that you register for this conversation. Now, are there any other admin notes that I need to address before I forget?
That was the admin note that I was going to unplug right there, but you already got it done. So
Hey man, I want to make sure I'm on it. I want to make sure I'm
you
on it.
own it like flies on stank.
Oh man, that's dangerous. That's dangerous right
Like,
there.
yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and get the party started.
Yes, sir.
Flies on steak, man. Picture this. You've got fired. A promotion slipped away, a relationship crumbled, a dream derailed. What's your first thought? I'm not good enough. This is who I am. I'll never succeed. Now, imagine a world where the failure isn't an ending but a beginning, where struggle isn't a verdict, it's fuel. Welcome to the science of mindset. For decades, Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck unearthed a radical truth. Your beliefs about your abilities don't just reshape your choices, they rewrite your brain. Her research reveals two invisible forces steering every decision that you make: the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. Here's the kicker: by age 4, children already choose safety over growth. In the landmark studies, kids picking easy puzzles over hard ones weren't lazy, they were protecting their identity. Their tiny brains whispered, "If I try and fail, I'm not smart." Fast forward 20 years, and it's adults self sabotaging promotions, relationship, and risks, all to dodge the phantom of not enough. But Dweck's work shows something revolutionary. The brain isn't fixed, it's a muscle. Every challenge, every setback forges new neural pathways. And here's the secret those who thrive have mastered: failure isn't falling down, it's refusing to stand differently. Think about it. Why do some leaders crumble under feedback while others devour it? Why do students with identical IQs split into helpless versus relentless when faced with a math problem? The answer lives in two words: yet and now. Students told you haven't mastered this yet triple their effort. Those shackled to now, they tend to quit. Not because they're weaker, because society taught them genius skips struggle. Your mindset is your destiny, and destiny, it's your choice. So today, we tear down the cult of natural talent. We hack the brain's ability to grow through grit, and we start by asking, is the story you're telling yourself protecting you or poisoning you? Let's find out. So, that said, I kind of want to start off with a very simple question because, again, this whole conversation is about how do you stay focused in a world built on distractions. And so, because you guys know I like kind of including statistics in some of these conversations we tend to have. So I kind of want to put this out there with a little statistical information in there. In your opinion, why do 83% of professionals admit they spend more time managing distractions than pursuing meaningful goals?
Hmm. In my opinion, why do 83% of professionals admit they spend more time managing distractions than pursuing meaningful goals? I think sometimes when you have people working, they're working a job, that job is not who they are and is not, sometimes it's not that identity. That is a means to pay the bills. So when they're at work, they may be focused on what's going on at home, what's going on with the kids. I don't want to be here. This guy don't know what he talking about. I know more than him anyway, right? So what happens sometimes is that you get people at work who are just there for the paycheck. They're not really there because they want to be part of the company or part of the union or to for something bigger, right? So now you have so many people that are distracted by all of these things outside of the job. Now I come in, you come in as a manager, as someone um who's managing these people, and instead of you being able to say, "Hey, look, this is how things are, this is how they're going to be, A, B, C, and D." Well, other people got distractions, and some of these distractions are 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 just part of life. Some of the distractions are somebody gets sick, we got to take them to the hospital. You know, kids get sick. We have doctor's appointments. When you work a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, you know, you can only, you know, you have to take off of work in order to be able to go into the bank and to do all these different things. So I think that what happens is because employees are so focused on things outside of the job, managers have to try to gather everybody in and kind of keep them focused on the task so we can keep them productive and different things like that. So that's kind of my opinion about it.
No, I greatly appreciate that opinion, and I don't think you're wrong at all. I think a lot of times what we want is for employees to have buy-in, and we believe that once they have buy-in, that they're dedicated. And I think there's a partial truth to that, but I also believe that distractions happen whether a person has buy-in or not. A lot of moving parts. You know, you got all the information that's happening on social media. You got all the stuff that's happening at home. You got all the things that are happening differently in each other's lives. And I think in no uncertain terms, I think what ends up happening is that it is easy for us to get off track when it comes down to it, because I don't think we necessarily pursue meaningful goals for starters. Even in the workplace, we may come up with strategic goals and milestones and benchmarks and all that other great stuff, but at the end of the day, the organization came up with those things. But at the end of the day, how closely knitted are the employees to those things? We've given them tasks, and those tasks equate to the work that they must do. But then, by that same token, how many emails do they get? How many phone calls do they get while trying to do that task? How many hey yous come down the pipeline and say, "Oh, you know what? Hey, Garfield, I know you're working on this right here, man. This right here is hot. I need this done. I need this done by lunch today before we leave and go to lunch." So now, whatever it was you were working on, this thing I just gave you became a distraction to it. So I think in the notion of everything, I think one of the things that we have to realize is that even when it comes down to work that must be done, that can still be a distraction from the thing that I was working on. How many times have you been sitting at your computer and working on something, and then you had this thought and say, "Oh, I can do this right here too as well." And so now you're not finished this task over here, but you got another screen open on this screen. You got another window open on this screen over here, and you start doing this because you had a bright idea over here. And then it's like, okay, now I can do this over here, and blah, 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 blah. We do that all the time because we believe in the notion of multitasking. But multitasking, like we've said before, is a fallacy. You don't really multitask, you really switch. Your brain switches from this to that and so forth and so on. And so in our minds, we believe that, oh, well, I can multitask and I can get more things done, but that's a fallacy. That's a misnomer. That's not even accurate. That is just the way that our brains were programmed, because throughout our term of existing, our ancestors' term of existing, we believed that you get more done when you do more things. But doing more things don't necessarily get you to the place of getting more done. Like, wouldn't you be further along if you focus all of your energy in one thing and then pour yourself into that until completion and then move on to the next? Because the next should be at a higher level than the thing that you were working on. So I think that's part of the reason that goes into the statement, goes into this question as well, because I can tell you from the perspective of being a manager that there have been several times that I have to go check on people. Why do I have to check on people to make sure that they're doing the right thing, right? You sign the contract, you have an agreement with the company. They say we will pay you X amount of money for this amount of productivity. They tell you the things that you have to be good at, and you should be able to do that. So, is it because you don't necessarily understand the job description, or the manager did not give clear, concise guidance in the do outs that were expected? So, within the scope of all of this, it can be a number of different things. But for the sake of this conversation, we're going to kind of keep it focused on, being focused, keep it focused on being focused while attempting to eliminate distraction. In the first place, yes, I'm sorry, go ahead. No, go
You
ahead.
kinda had an alibi.
Yeah,
Something you said I didn't really wanna gloss over, and you was talking about distractions. I never really thought about the distractions in the workplace amongst coworkers and stuff like that. Someone saying, "Hey, let's get together and have a potluck." Now they wanna have a meeting to discuss the potluck. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? It's like, over here working, and then I think it also talks of, we can't eliminate the type of jobs that you work in as well. Like for me, I'm a high school counselor. So yes, I may be doing something, I may be focused on trying to do scheduling, but if a student that comes in that needs something, he walks in or she walks in, now and I have to stop what I'm doing because that's also part of my job. But that part of my job is not necessarily seen on paper. When you
right.
have to cross all these T's and dot all of these I's by the end of the semester, but that's not taking into the account the amount of hours you spent with students on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah.
So definitely the type of work that we do plays a huge part of this. And I never, like I said, I never really thought about how even on the job itself can be distractions and other stuff that goes on the job, co-workers. Imagine all them people in them cubicles and stuff like that, man.
Yeah.
Whew.
Water cooler talks, smoke
Water
break,
cooler talk,
yeah,
smoke breaks.
all that stuff, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And again, it
And each
discon
other memes, group chats.
oh, yeah, absolutely. Talked about what you seen on TV last night, and you gotta watch the show.
Mhm.
The show is really good, and, all that other how bad the movie Superman is. I'm sorry, I said it out
Uh-huh.
loud. I do apologize.
How was it?
Um, Yeah, it wasn't good.
Oh man.
Not in my opinion, though. That's just
Okay.
it. I'm not a movie critic. I'm just a person who like
Mhm.
movies. Um, so I think that being said, that kind of gets us into a place to we can kind of start diving into the details of this conversation because first and foremost, I want to look at a concept called flow. Now, this section is all about the flow famine, how hyper scheduling kills deep work. And I want to start off with this gentleman here, and I am going to mispronounce his name, so y'all please don't hold that to me. But this young man, I can't pronounce his name, but he is known as the father of flow. And he's kind of cut his teeth in positive in the realm of positive psychology, and he's kind of gotten to the point to where he incorporates a notion of being so embedded to what you're doing that outside distractions cannot influence you. So it's almost like immersion. So immersing yourself into it. And as you can see here, flow itself is characterized by intense and focused concentration on the task at hand, with distractions and external stimuli fading away. This in turn kind of puts us in a position to where we enter a state called deep work. Now, deep work is a state of peak concentration that lets you learn hard things and create quality work quickly. This term was coined by Cal Newport, a computer science professor at Georgetown, and the author of the book called Deep Work: Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. And I think this is a interesting concept because it kind of puts me in, like, you've heard of the different realms of sleep, and so you not only have, I think it's light sleep, REM sleep, but then you have deep sleep. And deep sleep is ideally where you get more of your rest. Like a lot of people, we talk about REM, rapid eye movement. We talk about that, but deep sleep is where you really rest. It's almost like a dream state, if you will. And so that's the focus that, he tend to talks about deep work and how it by itself, if you do that, it has a very intense form of concentration to where you almost become numb to the world outside of you. And so that's kind of like the notion that I want to kind of start off with, and I'll let deep work flow at the bottom. And that being said, the problem is constant task switching, emails, meetings, phone calls, whatever, tends to disrupt our neural pathways, which is needed for innovation. So, in this world, in our work culture, in today's society, why do you think institution reward business theatrics over actual output? And how does this reinforce surface level thinking?
Why do institutions reward busyness theatrics over actual output? And how does this reinforce surface level thinking? Kind of back to the other, what I was talking about earlier when it comes to the employees. People are distracted, they have a lot of other stuff going on. People also know that people can be manipulative. People, you talked about the 4-year-old learning certain things then. I think we start off early in life being manipulative, and sometimes we get older and we don't even realize we're doing it. Even if it's, like I said, sometimes it may be intentional. Now, where I'm going with this is this. Here's what I mean by that. You have people that are at work and they need to move ahead. So they assume that working later hours, wearing a certain outfit, um, having certain conversations, looking busy, doing all of these different things, not going to lunch, not going taking smoke breaks, doing all of these things. People, when you look at it, it seems like those are the ones who have gotten promoted in the past, right? So I was trying not to go to the military, but I got to go over there. All right. So when we saw a lot of people, I saw a lot of people in the military who had great APFT scores. They may have looked the part. They may have chiseled chin, all of this stuff. The uniform looked good. It was always at this. They was at that. They volunteered for this, 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 and this. but they wasn't doing nothing. There was horrible leaders. They was disrespectful. Behind the scenes, they may have been, having doing bad things behind the scenes with doing things they weren't supposed to be doing. But when they get to work and they're around Master Sergeant so and so, or First Sergeant so and so, or Platoon Sergeant Dwyer, they like, hey, everything look good. They act like their stuff don't stink, and it seems like sometimes those people were the ones who were getting rewarded. So it's like, well, this is what I need to do too. So I think sometimes it is something that may be part of a culture, or what is assumed to be part of a culture, or your perspective on what part of the culture is. And I think people do that, but for some reason I don't know why people do that. I think some of it is people are not digging deep enough into who these people are, and they're rewarding them based off of surface level or superficial type of things. And I think what that does is reinforce the surface level thinking, because you're not thinking any deeper than what you're seeing on the surface from this person. You're seeing Unc every single day. Hey, man, this Joe, he don't never take no breaks. He don't take smoke breaks. When he always back from lunch on time. When I see him at lunch, he's already, he's talking to the boss about how he can be better, whatever like this. Is he's here 15 minutes before every single shift, he's always doing the right thing all the time, and it make it seem like he's doing the right thing. So when you see that and you don't look below that, I think that's where you start getting stuck at, where you seeing people as just the surface level, and that's where it kind of reinforces the surface level thinking, because you're just rewarding what you see versus what's underneath the actual person. Very
Oh,
long-winded
no, no,
response.
no, no, no. It was good. I like that, and I appreciate that response. And I think you're right. I think you're right. I think institutions reward busy theatrics because it's easier to assess. Like if you pay close attention to it, it's like visible displays of activity are easier to observe and measure than, let's just say, creative thinking and genuine results. And I think these signal managers and their peers that someone is quote unquote hardworking. Mr. Martin, he works really, really hard. How do you know? Look at him; he's always working. But are we assessing the right things? Become it's probably one of the questions that we have to look at. Is it institutions? And we say institution, we're not talking about like universities. We're talking institutions as a means for like organizations, right? Which also includes you know institutions of higher learning. Um, but are we really assessing the right thing at the institutional level? Now, is it the institution's responsibility for me to bypass the facade of genuine work and creative thinking? No, I don't think it is. But by that same token, if you're employing me and you're going to reward me for surface level thinking and minimal work, then it's kind of like the notion of why should I do more if I'm getting what I want anyway? That's kind of like how people think. Um, but you also have to realize that this surface level thinking that we tend to reward, like you said, it kind of incentivizes people to optimize appearance over over genuine output, right? And it can, prioritize quality or quantity over quality. Obviously, it avoids deep work, and it kind of discourages you from taking risks. And so, ultimately, what we have to realize is that when you reward shallow work and short-term thinking, it ultimately stifles true production and innovation. So we'll talk about innovation and creativity all the time, but we don't set the conditions for it to be the case. Go ahead.
Do you think some of that is how it's just going to be, and that big businesses can't control it? And what I mean by that is this: promotions come from top down,
Sure.
right? You looking always, you got a big company, whatever like this, and they're looking to promote somebody. Well, they're promoting from the bottom. So they're promoting, no disrespect to anybody, but they're promoting from the bottom level to these people, right? But these people up here don't have a bird's eye view into what's going on at the bottom. They're all they know is that we need to promote 8 more sergeants, or we need to promote 8 more people to manager in across the span of Chick-fil-A or whatever company it may be. So the people who are assessing and making these promotions and stuff at the bottom level, um maybe they're not always qualified to, I don't know, maybe it's hard to assess everybody. When you got 1,000 employees, how can you really assess everybody deeply? In the military, we had a way of doing it because we had monthly counseling. So there was always a way. We were constantly assessing our soldiers. So
Oh,
when it came time for promotion, there was already a system set up. So, and I guess I say all that to say now that I'm rethinking that companies can do it. They just have to come up with a system that focuses on it, and it focuses on assessment.
well, so you're right. I think most companies have that, right?
Mm.
Most companies have performance evaluations, right? But here's the issue:
Ooh.
we're talking leader development. That's what
Mhm.
your question is all about. So when I have these leaders, because you got to realize a person's span of leadership is no more than 3 to 5. A person
Mhm.
really can't effectively lead no more than 5 people. And when you start looking at these larger numbers, you got to look at the subordinate leaders in the company. So just because a company has 1,000 people in the company, sure, you got to look at how many leaders in that company that exists as well. So if you got 1,000 people, you're probably got someplace around 300 leaders, ideally. So that being said, you have to have a very good, very robust, and very detailed leader development plan. That leader development plan now teaches those subordinate leaders how to properly assess their subordinates. So when we start looking at performance measures and performance evaluations, are we setting measures that are quantifiable? Are we evaluating them based upon that metrics, and are we helping them to create the plan to improve upon the metrics that we have now uncovered? Because at the end of the day, if they're not achieving said metrics, then something is missing. Something is wrong within the scope of the environment. So we got to fix that, whether it's internal to them, internal to me as a leader, or internal to the organization, and it's a culture thing. So now, when you start getting after those questions right there, it's all about leader development. Can I do leader development on a regular employee who is not a leader? Absolutely. They just don't know that I'm doing it, and then eventually they get to the point to where they start to have, going back to what I said previously, they start to have buy into not only the organization itself, but the work that they're actually doing. So now they're caring about the work so that they can get to the point of deep work, not shallow work and things of that nature. So now I will not turn the product over you until I am confident that this product here does exactly what it's supposed to do, the way that I need it to do, and it meets your expectations as well.
Got it. Got it.
Long-winded response, but yeah, that was a great question.
I got it, man. I like it.
All right, next that takes us to what is known as the 2-minute rule. Now, the 2-minute rule I think is interesting because if you haven't paid attention, some of the things I'm going to hit you with includes laws and theories and things of that nature because it's all centered around human behavior. Parkinson's law is the idea that work expands to fill the time allotted for its completion. This means you take longer than necessary to complete a task, or you procrastinate and complete the task right before the due date. With Parkinson law, it kind of helps you to realize where you exist within the spectrum. Because here's the problem when it comes down to it: 62% of people start days with quick tasks that derail priority work, according to the American Express study done in 2022. Now, sure, it can be a little antiquated because they have been 3 years since, but I don't think human behavior has changed that drastically. So, in my opinion, I still think this is a valid study. So, it takes me to the notion of what is known as micro productivity, which I believe it's a thing, but I don't think it's a genuine thing that we can hang our hat on. Because productivity encourages the belief that constantly completing small tasks, in other words, checking a box, equates to meaningful progress. This focus on immediate visible accomplishment can erode the time and mental energy needed for deep, sustained work that builds a true legacy. So, my friend, how does Micro productivity lead us to prioritize checking the box over meaningful legacy building work.
Man, I'm like, man, coach must be over here sitting in my office sometimes. Cause I would say that I am probably, and whether or not we want to adopt this as a real word or thing or not is don't matter. It still is a word that we can use to where now everybody understands. So I get it 100%. Um, so I'm over here as you talking and monologuing, I'm over here like, man, this might be me. You know what I mean? I'm over here looking over here right now. And yesterday I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 things on my list. I am a huge proponent of checking the box. Here's what I am also guilty of: micro productivity. Most of the things that get checked off are the little small things that are easy to do. I will put small things on there intentionally. Check email, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Make a phone call at 9 o'clock. You know what I mean? Workout. I'm going to work out anyway. You know what I'm saying? So I put stuff on there sometimes. I mean, there's some things on there that are long, like complete 4 coaches corner shows. That was on my list for yesterday, and I got 4 of them done. So that was a long task, but that task has been on my list for about a month because I'm just speaking to me right now.
Mhm.
Whatever reason, um, I could be transparent. But now that I'm having this conversation, it's like more real that I do need to be focused on some of these longer things. I got a whole bunch of things that I have on the shelf because of how long it's going to take me to do. So it's like far as prioritizing and stacking what comes first, if I can get 10 things done versus 2 things, sometimes I think I'm more accomplished if I get the 10 things done than the 2 priority or than the 2 big things. Because the 2 big things take so much time. Those might take 4 hours to do. The 10 big things might take 3 hours to do. So if I got 4 hours a day, do I want to get these 10 things done or do I want to get these 2 things done? So I see it all the different type of ways. So how does it lead us to prioritize checking boxes? Um, I don't know. It just That's my story right now.
I got
And
you.
I will say that when it comes to meaningful legacy building work, there are 3 things that's supposed to been already done by now. And I will say that I've got a whole bunch of other things done, they haven't been done. My book was supposed to been done already. My children's book series was supposed to already been done. And my other book that I thought about was already supposed to been done already.
Yeah.
Those meaningful legacy building work have been put on the shelf because I've been checking boxes about mailing my son's box, going to work out, and checking my email.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. It makes you feel good. That's the answer. It makes you feel good. Remember, we had that long conversation a few weeks ago about dopamine. It's the carrot on the stick. If I can check some of these boxes off, I feel like I was productive today.
Yep.
And that is in essence what it all boils down to. Your brain is like wired to seek quick rewards. So we believe wholeheartedly that completing tasks, regardless of how big or small it is, it means that today was a meaningful day for me because I was able to accomplish some things. But when we look at completing tasks, regardless of how big or how small, because we're wired for quick rewards, it kind of gives us a dopamine rush. We it's almost like, you know, do good, feed me, kind of like concept. And that's what happens. So we'll do good so I can feed me that feel good chemical that is released whenever I get to check the box. And it makes me feel productive and accomplished. But the issue is that it can trap us in cycles of shallow work. And ultimately, it distracts us from more significant long term products. Like, given your example, you would have felt 10 times more accomplished completing that book in the long term than you would have
Mhm.
checking 10 of those boxes. Because
Yep.
here's the funny part about those, and I call them menial tasks, but here's the funny part about those menial tasks. They're always there. You complete 4, you plan for 4 shows on Coach's Corner. Well, guess what happened once, we get about halfway through those 4 shows. It's time to plan for 4 more shows, right? And so, in all actuality, I'm not saying that those shows aren't important or going to the gym isn't important, as you mentioned, or I can't remember the other thing you mentioned. Sending a
Checking your
box,
mail.
checking your email, sending a box. Not saying that those things aren't important,
Yeah.
but what I am saying is they don't equate to the legacy building aspect, the more like the thing that you could do that can be impactful for a multitude of people. Um, and so it's just one of those things. I know somebody's cringing in their seat as we're having this conversation because in their mind they do it all the time, and me too. I do
Oh,
it
I
too.
know I ain't the only one.
Yeah, you ain't the only one. Me too. I do it too. And people who know me, they know I've been talking about writing this book for the longest. Now
Mhm.
I've written ebooks, but
Mhm.
writing books, right? The
Mhm.
book that I want to write, I haven't done that yet. So I got to
Mhm.
get around to it. And I will. I will.
Yeah.
Especially after being honest with myself and looking at this conversation that we're having and be like, you know what?
Bruh,
You know all this stuff. Why you ain't doing it?
bruh. Reality
Um,
check right here. I like it.
Absolutely. It absolutely is a reality check.
Mhm.
Next is the attention restoration theory, like why your work is a war zone. Um, I think it's a thing, and I think you already know this to be true. Outdoor and natural environments tend to kind of like replenish us. It helps us to focus. Sometimes we do it to clear our head, and things of that nature. And I think when we look at this notion in regards to work settings, fluorescent lighting and noise pollution reduce cognitive performance by 25%. And it's a thing. Like, we would do well. Like, okay, let me talk about me for a second before I get into the question. There are days when I go to work and I work in a secretive compartmentalized information facility. It can't have any windows. In fact, the only window in the building is when you walk in the door in the beginning to go through the security checkpoint. All right. And I think that's a thing. So, why do companies persist with open office layouts despite evidence that they fracture attention? And how could workplace design elements like plants and natural light reduce lost productivity? Now, before you get into that, I want to give a quick statistical point. Workers near windows report 30% higher focus, yet 72% lack access to natural light. So, your question, sir.
Man, why do companies persist with open office layout despite evidence? Man, it's about the bottom line at the end of the day, in my opinion. Businesses are created to make money. They're not there to focus on your health, your well-being, what you got going on, your kids, what college they go to, their that's not their worry. Their worry is how much profit can we make by the next quarter for our stakeholders, for people like me who own stock in that company. I want that company to grow so I can get an extra percentage on my stocks every which call it. And what comes with that is this: that company is trying to please me and all the other stakeholders. So they like, look, how can we cut money? We got 80 people. Everybody don't need their all own office. So you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna set up 70 cubicles. We're gonna set up 10 offices and we're gonna make 10 of y'all managers. You know what I'm saying? And we're gonna have all y'all work around here and make sure y'all keep all these people in line. We ain't gonna do it at the top. We're going to pay these extra people in these 10, they got these 10 buildings, I mean these 10 rooms with one window in it. We're going to pay them an extra $2 an hour to control the other 70 people in there. So at the end of the day, I think it's just a business thing. It's not about making sure that the employees are in their best, what's necessarily in their best interest. I think for some of the companies that do these, not all companies, but the companies that practice this, I think it's about money. It's about I think it's about money at the end of the day. It's bottom line. It's about money. And that's why they're not going to do it. That's why they do this.
I mean, that's the bottom line. The bottom line is it's about money. The statistical data shows already that these large, like, I'm just going to call them like warehouse type. I'm not necessarily saying warehouse. It could be a large office space with like 20 cubicles in it, whatever. Or it
Like
could be,
call centers and stuff like that.
yeah, something like that. Or it can be a larger facility with section cordon off workspaces, one or two offices, because that's where the manager works or whatever the case may be. Those things were created for oversight and money. Because at the end of the day, remember, a manager's job, in most cases, they report that 83% of the time they spend trying to eliminate distractions. So if I put you in the room with them so that you can look at them, now you can help to eliminate the distractions. Therefore, now, you know, but at the end of the day, another notion they believe is that, well, it kind of facilitates collaboration. No, that's not the case. The only thing that facilitates collaboration is intentionality. When you become intentional about collaborating, then you will collaborate. I don't care if you're sitting right next to me or not. Here's the thing that a lot of people tend to do. They will send an email to the person on the other side of the cubicle from them. And then at lunch, hey man, did you get my email? No, I didn't check my email. But oh, I sent you an email about 3 hours ago. Well, why didn't you just tell me? I'm right here. Only thing, get up out your seat, walk around and say, hey, Garfield, hey, man, I'm about to send you an email. In the email, I'm going to this, that, and the third. When you get a chance, I need you to action this for me. And Garfield can give me a vocal right down the spot, right? A vocal compliance right down the spot. Okay, cool. I'll be looking for the email. Cool. Then I go back to my desk, send. You got it? All right, cool. That's collaboration. We just talked. We just, I don't know why we believe that just because we cram everybody in the room and make everybody breathe the same air that they're breathing, right? That automatically begins collaboration. It does not. That is a fallacy. We made that up, and unfortunately, kind of like what you said, because of bottom line, because of money, right? That now becomes the driving force, and everything else behind it is secondary. Um, and I think ultimately, it's how can I say it? It is the perception that we have of fostered collaboration and maximizing space efficiency to reduce costs as well. So that's ultimately what it boils down to. But man, you were spot on with that. So thank you for that. I just kind of over embellished the same thing that you previously said, but absolutely. Um, Next is the Eisenhower matrix paradox. Why urgent is the enemy of important. Now, I think this is interesting as well because we talked previously and I showed an example of the Eisenhower matrix. And the Eisenhower matrix prioritizes tasks by urgency and importance. And the problem is that, well, corporate cultures glorify urgency addiction ASAP. Hey, this is hot, Garfield. I need this done right now. Like we in a meeting, like Garfield. I know I got you working on a project, but I got something that I need you to do. So set the project aside, and I need you to do that. And ultimately, it kind of gets you to kind of push aside the strategic work that you were working on because I coined this as being hot, probably because somebody above me is getting hammered because they need that right now. And the sad part about it is that 89% of leaders waste 3 or more hours a day reacting to non-critical urgent demands. And that's based upon another Asana study that was done actually this year in 2025. So That said, why do professionals conflate urgency with worth? And how does this societal fear of, fear of missing out drive people to chase irrelevance disguised as productivity, ultimately eroding long-term vision?
Got a story. Buck Sergeant Martin, working in brigade, Fort Hood, Texas. NCO comes in, Sergeant Martin, you need to go see Sergeant Major. I ain't did nothing. I've been good. Sergeant Major, knock on Sergeant Major's door. Stand pray rest. Sergeant Major, Sergeant said you need to see me. Sergeant Martin, delete your signature block. Get out. Roger that, Sergeant Major. That was it. My signature block said, at the time I was working in school, I was working in brigade schools, always getting last minute stuff. My signature block said, failure to plan on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine.
Mm.
So I guess that was in on my signature block. So when I would send emails out, and it would be to warrant officers and officers and stuff like this, because it's last minute, they hadn't done their school stuff, and they coming to me because they need orders to go to school, and they supposed to leave tomorrow, and you ain't got no orders. So that was it. So I learned that some people started focusing on urgency and not what was going on. I'm working on the important task so it doesn't get to an urgent state. So to the question, why do professionals conflate urgency with worth, and how does this societal feel such as FOMO drive people to chase irrelevance disguised as productivity, ultimately eroding long-term vision? I don't know. I think sometimes people just scared and like to throw people's name under the bus. You know what I'm saying? They like, look, man, I need this done now. Sometimes they want it done now because they've been distracted all day long. They've been smoking and joking over at the water cooler, and they had 4 or 5 smoke breaks, and now stuff ain't been getting done because they hadn't been planning. And now all of a sudden, hey man, Ace 8, email Sergeant Dwyer. Sergeant Major said, bro, Sergeant Major ain't said nothing, bro. Why you throwing Sergeant Major's name up under the bus? I think it's all of these things, people throwing name dropping and all of that stuff. I just think is overall bad. I don't know how I got way off on here. And I think it's probably you probably need to clean it up a little bit for me. I might have got too
No,
far
you
off.
you good. You good. I really do like that example because I know, like, I had school NCOs working for me, so I know how frustrating that can be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to your point, I think a lot of times we tend to have this constant chase for productivity. And so when something is urgent, we conflate urgency with importance. And so ideally, when you come to me and say something is urgent, that means it's important. Now that puts me back into the check in a box thing, right? And so now now it has moved to the top of my list of productivity for the day. And if we get this thing accomplished, we did a good job. We get that dopamine rush, right?
Yeah.
But again, what does it take away from? It take away from that long task that you are working on that has more meaning to the entire organization. And I think this constant busyness, and it's BUSYNES, not BUSINES. We believe busyness equates to business, and it does not. And so this constant pursuit of business and immediate responsiveness with we kind of overvalue that, right? And ultimately it pressures individuals to stay perpetually active and visible. Because think about it, when you got this hot item on your desk, you're going to look busy. People going to, no, don't mess with Sam Martin, he got this going on right now.
Yep.
Don't mess with Mr. Martin, he busy. Like, you can task anybody else, just don't task him.
Yeah.
I got him on a hot project right now, right? And I think that's part of the issue, part of the concern. And like, a reactive mindset is really fueled by the fear of missing out and instability. And I think that's where a lot of the pressure come from. So I greatly appreciate that story because
Um,
that story was a good example of it.
Yeah, man, you get they like, hey man, we come in the schools in the morning and say, hey man, the colonel, the colonel gotta go to school. He gotta leave this weekend. So tonight, I mean today, no matter what, we gotta get the colonel's orders. I'm like, man, as the brigade NCO already knew that the schools sent the colonel an email 90 days ago and told him to get with the schools NCO. But like you said, now I got to drop everything. Son Dwyer got to go to school too. I'm already working on his orders. I'm talking to somebody right now. But like I said, man, if we were focused on the important stuff, we wouldn't have to get to the urgency level. And like you said, everything gets derailed because someone failed to plan at some point. There are always going to be certain things that come up. I get that. But a lot of stuff that we call urgent is just was piss poor planning on somebody's part somewhere earlier, because most stuff don't just come up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's real. That happens every day, and I believe it happens in every institution. Um, and that takes us to our last point. Make sure you guys stick with us. We got something special after this. This is our last talking point. Psychological inertia, the hidden cost of task switching. Now, um, I think this is a very interesting concept, because a lot of times we're lacking in the area of momentum, and you've seen it. Whether you're trying to do something big, you got to get it started, and once you get it started, you get momentum flowing, and once momentum starts flowing, now you can kind of keep the process rolling. And so it takes a lot of energy in the beginning to get something moving, right? That's really what inertia is. And so that kind of takes me to the notion of mental activation. And when we look at mental activation, it by itself, it refers to that energy, right? The energy that is required to start a task or behavior. So now you're working on this thing, and then I come and drop this on your desk and say, I need this by the end of the day. And so now you have to unplug from this and then focus your mental energy on this thing and to get yourself in the groove of doing this thing. That's kind of like what mental activation energy is. And the problem is that switching tasks costs about 23 minutes of refocus time on average. Yet the average worker switches about 300 plus times a day. Now, of course, there's some flexibility in that 300 plus times. Some organizations do a lot better. You may only switch 100 times. But when we talk about this, everything is included. We're talking about going to the bathroom, water cooler talks. We're talking about smoke breaks. We're talking about meetings. We're talking about phone calls. We're talking about the student comes in that Mr. Martin got to talk to. We're talking all of those things incorporated into the daily task. And again, some of those phone calls equate to it. Now you done factor in a new thing. They got this thing, Teams. And I talk about for the most part, the government. We do business on Teams, so you got to have a Teams window up just in case somebody sends you a message. Somebody sends me a message that removes me off of focus. Somebody sends me an email that removes me off of focus. Right? Somebody invites me to a meeting, and they will call you without any you know heads up. Next thing you know, your phone start ringing on Teams, so you got to answer the phone call, whatever. So it's like a lot of those things tend to take away from it, and it can be problematic and detrimental to focus. So why does society mistake constant busyness for dedication? And how can we overcome our natural tendency to be distracted instead of deeply focused?
How does society mistake constant busyness for dedication? I think kind of like what you mentioned earlier is easy, is easily accessible. You can see someone being busy. You can't always see someone's dedication. You know, sometimes, but however, you can sometimes see people's dedication. So, I mean, there are some people that you can look at a football player and you know that this person dedicated and you know that person put in the work by the way they show up on the field versus somebody that's always at practice and they're busy and they're doing everything, but they ain't, you can tell that their skills are lacking, and you can tell they're not putting the work. They're just maybe going through the motions. And, but I think again, in certain spaces, like what we're talking about on a job and stuff like this, it's easy to assess people doing stuff kind of like what we mentioned earlier. Coach don't never take no breaks. You know what I mean? Different stuff like this. And how can we overcome our natural tendency to be distracted instead of deeply focused? Um, Practice being intentional about it, and understanding that it may be a process that comes along and it may take time to get over it. I am definitely on this journey right here. You know what I mean? Because as I mentioned earlier, there are some things that I haven't done because I'm distracted by little things, by micro tasking or checking boxes and stuff like that, that has caused me to not produce things that can be part of my legacy. Um, as you mentioned, and I'm still thinking about it right now, and is this conversation is a really good wake up call to me right now, as far as what I really need to be doing, and some of the things I need to be focused on. So it's more so like a revisit into what's next, going forward. So darn, like this conversation.
Yeah, man.
Um, the natural tendency to be distracted. How can um listening to content, figuring out, seeing if you actually have a problem or if this is part of who you are, and then coming up with a plan to reach the goal um of whatever it is that you want to accomplish. I don't think it's necessarily as easy as just this is how we just overcome it. I think it's a few steps that goes into this in order to do it. I am definitely on this journey right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
But I will say this. I think we all have certain areas that we may be able to do this in, and certain areas that we may not be able to do it in as well. So
yeah. I think so. I think you're right. Um, I think we all are definitely in some area of our life working on this. I don't care who you are. I think you're working on this. Even businesses, especially businesses, right? And for the sake of time, I think your assertion of intentionality is 100% spot on. Like, we can be intentional about creating environments and habits that support concentration by setting like boundaries, minimizing interruptions, and practicing mindfulness in the midst of it. Sometimes we may feel like I have a hard time focusing, and we'll say that out loud. I have a hard time focusing. But do you really have a hard time focusing, or you not giving yourself permission to focus? Like, you are intentionally distracted. Every time you turn around, you got Facebook up, or you got TikTok up, or whatever the case may be. You scrolling through the feeds or whatever, and you see it at work. People at work, people that be at work and send you TikTok messages at work. Like, how's that possible? You can't be working. You can't be focused on anything meaningful, right? And so I think that's all an embedded culture, right? It's culture inside of a culture, right? You can set the notion of culture through values, right? Organizational values. But then by that same token, how are we embodying that culture within the organization itself? So I think if we look at those things, setting boundaries and practicing mindfulness, right, and making sure that we minimize distractions, right? Leaders first. Leaders have to minimize distractions, like you said. Your sergeant major said, "Failure to plan on your part does not constitute an emergency on my behalf." Right? Again, that's a common thing that we hear in the army. That's why I was easy to quote it again. Those things kind of help us to get to the position to where we can overcome a natural tendency to be distracted instead of deeply focusing. Now, I know we're short on time, and I did promise you something, so we're going to do it. We're not going to do the whole thing, right? But brother Martin, you are on deck. Generally everybody's seen the TV show, so I can't call it what the TV show called it. So this is going to be another episode of Coach's Choice, right? Remember, we did Coach's Choice at one point in time. So because of time, we're not going to go through the whole board. Pick a category and then pick a value, and then that will promote the the question, and then you have to respond with the answer that starts with a question. What is, who is, whatever the case may be. And again, for you guys in the chat, you're a little at a disadvantage because I understand that you don't get to pick, but at least you'll get to live vicariously through his selection. And by all means, give us the answer if you have it first. So, Brother Martin, that's the rules. Any questions about it? I know you've seen this game played several times before, so I think you already know it inherently. So you
Mhm.
have the floor.
All right. So what's the one at the top? We had the psychology. It said psychology something. The logo's blocking it.
Psychological, so they're the same talking points we had today. Psychological
Okay.
inertia,
Okay.
uh, going to the left, Eisenhower matrix paradox, attention restoration theory, the two-step rule trap, and flow state in deep work.
Psychological inertia. Psychological and no, that one. Let's do flow state and deep work for 100, Dwayne.
All right, flow state in deep work. This should be pretty easy. Open says me. Why does it not want to open? Okay, this psychologist coined the term for the state of total immersion in a task.
What is that person's name that who is that person's name that you can pronounce that started with an M and ended with a C?
I give you that one. I give you that one. I give you that because I can't pronounce his name. But I'll put it in the window that way everybody can see it.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I give you your point for that.
Yeah,
That is
she.
that is his name. Mahaley Chikinsin. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, him.
Yeah,
All right. Very good. Very good, sir.
yeah.
You got
Um,
down. You're a
I'm
team one.
gonna stay in the same category, but I want to go with let me go with 400.
Okay, that's what I'm
Same
talking about.
category, 400.
All right. The type of work, creative or strategic, a surgeon prioritizes mid operation while others neglect it.
And those my choices, creative or strategic?
No, 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 no. That's part of the question.
What is I don't know. Yeah, I may have bit off more than I should. I should have stayed
Hey,
in
I don't have the buzzer, but the answer to that is focused work. Focus.
focused work.
Yes.
Man, I'm not doing good at this.
No, you're doing good. You got 100 points so far.
I got 100 points. Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Um, let's go 2-minute rule trap for 100. Yeah.
All right. 2-minute rule trap for 100 says this law says work expands to fill the time allotted.
What is Parkinson's law?
Very good, sir. What is Parkinson's law?
Hey, there we
You be
go.
you be eating them hundreds up. All right, what's next?
Let me go. I'm gonna stay in this category. I'm gonna go. Let me give you 2-minute rule trap for 200.
2-minute rule trap for 200.
Mhm.
Question is starting the day with small tasks reduces problem solving stamina by this percentage.
Mm. What is 63%?
If I had my buzzer, I would play it. It's actually what is 40%? What is
40%.
40%? Yes.
Okay.
All right. Think we got time for maybe two more.
2 more. Okay. I need to get some money then. Let me move the attention restoration theory for 500.
Okay. All right. Attention
Yeah.
restoration theory for 500 says evolutionary need violated by cubicles that leave brains chronically fatigued.
Mm. Evolutionary need violated. What is I don't know. Man,
Okay.
I need to stay. I need to go back to the 100s.
The answer to that one is actually spatial simplicity or nature immersion. Nature immersion, I thought you was going to get
Mm.
because we kind of talked about that a little bit. Okay, sir, one more.
All right. Eisenhower matrix paradox for 100.
All right, Eisenhower matrix paradox. Framework categorizing tasks by urgency and importance. If you don't get this one,
Mm,
what category are we in again?
the matrix paradox. Eisenhower matrix paradox. What is the Eisenhower matrix paradox?
Not paradox, but Eisenhower matrix.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, Eisenhower matrix. There you go.
Appreciate the hint.
That's all right. Cool beans. All right, so you got. I'm sorry, I didn't give you points there.
Oh, I needed
There we go. There we go. All right. There we go. That's it for today.
that.
Um,
It was
just
fun.
yeah, just something else we can do to kind of lighten up the mood, kind
Yeah.
of test our retainability on some of the things that we tend to talk about. I hope you guys enjoyed this show. Unc, you got last words for the peoples?
Um, August 16th, make sure you check us out for the seminar. Um, Information be in the description, like you said. Other than that, man, I'm good. I ain't got nothing else.
All right, very good. Yeah, like he said, everything he said, make sure you check it. Also, go back, look at this. Uh, I think there's a lot of information that was relayed during the show. A lot of meaningful information. It can be used in a workplace setting. It can be used in your own personal life, especially if you want to work on something meaningful. So yeah, that's about it. Listen, you guys have an awesome rest of your day. And as always, let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else. And we will see you again next week. We are out.